Continuing on with my new tradition of starting videos as I finish other ones, I've just finished my Women's Prize video where I read all of the shortlisted Women's Prize books and then ranked them, predicted the winner, and now I'm jumping into my next video, my next bit of reading. And this is very exciting because I'm going to be focusing on my TBR, something I have been severely neglecting since prize season started. But basically I'm going to be for 5 weeks focusing on my TBR, and each week has got a different theme to it. Technically, it might not be exactly a week long. I don't know. I haven't figured it out yet. I'm saying 5 weeks because it sounds nicer and more concise, but really my goal is to read 3 to 4 books per video. And I don't want to have to like rush that into 1 week if I'm not feeling it. So I'm going to give myself a little bit of grace with this one, but I'm still going to call it 5 weeks with my TBR or something like that. So for this week, I am going to be focusing on my NetGalley books. So initially when I came up with this idea, I just had 3 books that were on my NetGalley list that I needed to get to and review. Now I have 4 because there was a request I had put in seemingly forever ago that just came through and I was approved for it, which I'm very excited about. But also it does technically mean I hauled another book, which made my TBR go up. That's the opposite of what I'm trying to do right now. But yeah, my goal is to read all 4 of those books in this video. I also picked this one to be the first week just because I'm on more time constraints with this one. And also one of the books is kind of more timely. I'll go ahead and say right now that one is Cursed Bread. This is of course longlisted for the Women's Prize. We already know it hasn't been shortlisted. I'm worried about it because it seems like most people haven't liked it that have read it, but I'm gonna find out what I think because I was approved for the NetGalley. Oh, and I have the physical copy just because I got it from the library. And then another book I have the physical copy of, but I don't have it right here in my hands, is Malibu Rising. It's that light blue one right there. That one I was actually approved for the NetGalley of, and I feel so bad that I still have yet to read this book because I now own a copy of it. I have the NetGalley version and I still have yet to read it. But we're gonna remedy that in this video. It's also on my 23 books in 2023, so that's a great win. And then the 2 other ones I have, which I purely just have as like galleys on NetGalley. The Holdout, it's called. I can't remember the author. I just know that there's an astronaut on the cover, and I also don't remember what it's about. And then the other one is a Melissa Broder book, which I don't remember the name of, but the cover's beautiful. It comes out in October of this year, but I haven't read any of Melissa Broder before. However, I do have Milk Fed by her on my 23 books in 2023. Those are the 4 books that I am planning on reading in this video, then reviewing on NetGalley, and then I can have a better score again. Yay. So I've started reading Cursed Bread. I was a part of the plot along on Gemma's channel. We didn't do a ton of reading. I only read 30 pages of this, but we had a lot of fun. Also, not really book related. I mean, almost. I auditioned at a local theater for 12th Night, and I just found out that I got Olivia. Which I'm really excited about because I thought I bombed the audition, and I saw other people's auditions and I was like, they did great. I did terrible. I used to do theater in school, but I haven't since college. I thought I'd be able to just like jump back into auditioning and be fine. And this was my first time auditioning for a Shakespeare production, although I have acted Shakespeare before, but it was a part of a class thing. I didn't have to audition for it. But yeah, so I had to memorize a Shakespearean monologue. I did it. I got there and I was just, my nerves got to me, and I seriously, my legs were shaking, and I've never had that happen before. Like hands, sure, but like my leg, weird. So yeah, I felt terrible about the audition, but I found out today that I got a part. So yeah, it's a really small theater, but it was a big win for me because I haven't done theater in forever. I didn't even say what I thought about Cursed Bread so far. It's good. It's okay. I feel okay about it. It's a very short book, so I'm hoping that I'll just feel at least how I feel now for all of it. I do really like stories that are about somebody that's like obsessive over somebody else. In fact, this reminded me of the one that has the movie with Blake Lively and Anna Kendrick, and then also Ingrid Goes West, I feel like has those same vibes. So I like that kind of story, so I'm hoping that that kind of carries me through this. Although, I don't know, I've heard so many things, so we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Good morning. It is not that early, but I am going to be speaking in hushed tones because I am the only one awake. Besides Scout. Scout's also awake. I just happened to wake up early this morning and I'm just like sitting here thinking about how I should be reading because that's usually what I like to do in the morning, especially if I wake up early. And yet I don't want to. And I think it's because cursed bread is cursed. I have been dragging my feet on this so much, and we're coming up on like a week since I started this book, and it's less than 200 pages. And I'm not even technically halfway through. I have maybe like 100 pages left. I think the reason why I'm struggling so much with this, because I went into this fully knowing that there was a possibility of DNFing it because of how many people had DNF'd this book, and I didn't want it to send me into a reading slump or anything. But then when I started it, I was like, oh, I think like there's enough here that I'll want to read the whole thing. And I am mildly curious about how it ends. So I thought that would be enough to get me by. It's such a short book, but like, I just don't want to read it. And I think it's really making this whole video suffer because I'm not reading the other books that I was planning on reading. And considering this is the first part of like a 5-part series basically that I'm planning on doing, I can't be doing this with the very first book. I'm not officially DNFing it yet. There's a part of me that is hoping that I'm gonna be in the mood to read it at some point while I'm reading these other books. Also, I think part of me is struggling with this because I don't know why I don't want to read this. There's also like this feeling of something more meaningful going on. And like there's these letters that the main character, Elodie, is writing to Violet, who's the woman that she's basically obsessed with. She's kind of obsessed with the couple. So we get these flashes of Elodie meeting Violet and the ambassador and like their relationship from the beginning. And then we get these letters that presumably Elodie is writing to Violet. It seems like there's some type of police presence in that one. Like she's talking to the police for some reason. So there is like intrigue there, but the actual reading is just not very enjoyable. I'm not sure. I might try to continue in it, but if I finish all of the other books and I never feel the pull to read a little bit more of Cursed Bread, then I'm not gonna beat myself up about it. Oh, I do wanna say, I think that actually the Holdout I started before and I didn't realize it because I went to my Kindle, saw like, oh, I'd already downloaded the Holdout onto my Kindle. I open it up and I'm already like a good way into it, and I don't know why that would be unless I had started reading it, but I don't remember any of it, and I'm worried now that I started reading it and then DNF'd it, meaning to write a review about why I had DNF'd it, and then I just never did. That doesn't bode well. It's official. I'm DNFing Cursed Bread. I don't really know where I was at when I last updated you with how I was feeling about that. I think that I said that I was going to take a break from it, start another book, and then like see how I felt and possibly start it again. But instead I got like weirdly stubborn about it, and I kept trying to only read that and not start any of the books. So I just kept trying to read this. I made it to the halfway point and I was struggling. Like I just didn't want to read anything else ever. I finally ended up starting the Melissa Broder book, Death Valley. And then once I had started that, it became easier to look at Cursed Bread from a more objective standpoint. So, DNF'd. It's official. I need to write my review on NetGalley. I'm not looking forward to it. I don't like writing NetGalley reviews when I DNF. It feels bad. But I feel like half the book, like I did my job. I tried my best. And then as for Death Valley by Melissa Broder, so I am getting close to the halfway point now. And I'm enjoying, I'm liking it more than Cursed Bread. I'm finding it a lot easier to read than that. It's got like a little bit of surrealism to it that I guess I didn't expect, even though I have listened to reviews on Melissa Broder's books before, so I should have expected. I just kind of forgot until I was reading it, and I was like, oh yeah, I have heard this about her books. But it did feel very not out of nowhere, because I do think that it's kind of got this like loosey, weird writing that is still like really easy to follow what's going on, but it does kind of give you this feeling that anything could happen. So it's about this woman who is staying at this hotel outside of Death Valley, and she's supposed to be kind of like getting away from things, recentering, because her husband is very sick and has been for a long time. I can't remember what he has, but he doesn't have enough energy to do all that much throughout a day, so he kind of has to spend it where he can. And it seems like their relationship is still really positive, but obviously that's just a lot to deal with in general for the both of them. And then her father has now gotten sick and has been through, I think, a few different like near-death scares, and he's just woken up, but she's on this vacation now, so she's like kind of calling in and stuff, but overall she's really struggling. She's also a writer, and the book does talk a lot about her being a writer, which is something that I don't love in books, especially when it focuses so much on like, oh, I should put that in my book, I should put that in my book, and there's a lot of that in this. So those pieces I'm not as much a fan of. I like the surrealism, I don't so much like the writer bits, but I am curious to see where it goes. Right now it's kind of like a middle of the road book for me, which honestly, after Cursed Bread, I will more than accept. Oh, actually, and I also started The Holdout again. Not again. I don't think I ever actually started that. I don't know why my Kindle, like on my Kindle in the ebook, it showed that I was like a quarter of the way through that book, but I started reading and I was like, I definitely don't remember any of this, and it's pretty memorable, so... Okay, so I actually have quite a bit to update on, finally. So I finished Death Valley this morning. Was that just this morning? I literally like woke up and then finished like the last 15% of it on my Kindle with like the lights still off, Curtis still sleeping, me just in bed reading it because I was trying to finish it last night, but I was too tired. It does get more, not intense, but more like you want to know what's going to happen throughout the middle and close to the end of it, which I was not expecting out of this book. I think I feel pretty middle of the road about this book in general. I like the cohesion of all the different pieces of it. Like, it feels very focused on life, death, but also the amount of energy one has to expend on things and kind of using that in different ways. I feel like it expounded on that in both like simple ways, but also in more life and death situation ways. So I think that that was pretty cool. But besides that, there wasn't a lot to it. To talk about like what she should include in her book died down for the more interesting part of the book and then came back like at the end. I was happy that it wasn't super present the whole time like it was for the first half of the book. After I finished that, I actually got out of bed and then I decided to start Malibu Rising because I just wanted something kind of chill. I didn't want to jump back into The Holdout because it's really intense, and Malibu Rising was perfect for this morning. I only got like 30 pages and so far I'm liking it, finding it very readable, basically what I expected. But then I started back in with The Holdout and oh my gosh. Okay, so first of all, I have already read the first quarter of it. I don't know how I forgot this, but as soon as I got to like past 5%, some very recognizable things were happening and I was like, this all feels very familiar, especially the parts with the astronaut's sister who is in Brazil, working as a doctor in this tribe that has been impacted by Western diseases that it has not had exposure to prior to what's going on there. So there's a lot more like political stuff involved in this book. But anyways, so the sister part of it, Sonia, actually no, it's not her sister, it's her niece, but those parts were so much more recognizable because obviously they're very unique to have in a space story, or a story that seems like a space story, because like the cover of the book's an astronaut, you know, that like once I got back to that part and I was like, oh okay, yeah, I have read this, which I don't know why I stopped because it really pulls you in. And at this point I've just got 3 chapters and the epilogue left. Yeah, I've been obsessed with it like all day today and I'm really excited to see how this ends. But it's so cool because it's yes like a space novel, but it's also like political. It's got something to say about our current time, especially like US politics. I feel like it does a pretty good job about, and while not everything in it is super realistic, I do think that it does a good job of what it set out to do. But yeah, I'll talk about it more later because I have to finish it now. But I wanted to update because I hadn't since like the middle of Death Valley and I've done so much reading since then.
So I'm out running errands, which seems like it's the perfect time to do my obligatory update from the car. I feel like I have one of these in every video that I do that's like several books that I'm reading. And so, you know, I have to at this point. Also, it's just a good way to break up the scenery because I film 99% of my clips from my office. So also one of my errands is going to be returning Cursed Bread. So like it's official. I am definitely DNFing. I don't know why I was being so stubborn with that book. Anyways, I finished The Holdout last night. It was great. It had a great ending. There was a lot of like tension in it. Overall, I'm just really pleased with the book. Basically, it's about this woman who is on a space station. She stays there when she should be flying back with her crew, but you don't know why for a while into the book, so I'm not gonna say why she does that. And then I talked already about her niece. And so it's a lot of like political issues. There's not a ton of space stuff, but there is still some. And I think overall it was just kind of two things that I really love in books, like talking about politics but also space stuff, and it's like our world's politics, which together just really worked. So it's not real events that it's commenting on, but it is based off of real events, and I feel like that's pretty clear. So I read a little bit more of Malibu Rising, not much. I'm just 60 pages in now, and still liking it, still finding it really readable. It follows 4 siblings, or I think it's going to follow 4 siblings. Mostly right now it's just Nina, who it seems to be the protagonist. She's throwing a party at her house. She just recently went through a divorce, or I don't know if they got a divorce, but a breakup. But she throws this annual party. She's still planning on throwing it, and we know because of the prologue that it ends in a fire, which is an intense thing to know going into a story. And so you get the 24 hours before, but you also get flashbacks to her parents meeting and starting their life together. But yeah, that's everything. So time for some errands.
So I just filmed an unhaul, which is why my bookshelf is like half put back together, but I decided to take a little bit of a break to wrap up this video. I finished reading Malibu Rising and I just haven't updated yet. So overall, this is a good book. I think that Taylor Jenkins Reid just does such a good job of, you know, wrapping up a story, and she oddly reminds me a lot of Frederick Bachman in a lot of ways with the number of characters that she introduces, and then she'll kind of like dip into these side stories. So the whole like second half of the book was all taking place at the party in the present day, and she would just like reference these like celebrities or these people that wound up at the party and why they were there and like a bit of backstory, and they would get like a nice conclusion. That really reminds me of Frederick Bachman, which is maybe why I was drawn to her in the first place. It's been a long time since I've read any of her more recent books because I'd been trying to read all of her backlog, because she goes through this like very specific adjustment through her writing, where she starts with, you know, romance novels, but they're so far off from what she would end up writing. And I forgot how enjoyable it could be to read her more current books. It took me a while to really get into it. Like, I definitely found it readable the entire time, but as far as like caring about the characters and everything, I think that took me a little bit. But I think it's just because it had been a while since I'd read like a truly contemporary book and I wasn't used to it. But overall, I ended up enjoying my time reading it. I didn't love it or anything, but I had a great time all the way through, and I think the second half of the book I really enjoyed. I went through it really, really quickly. I got to like that halfway point, and then I almost just like sat down and finished the rest of the book right then, but I did end up taking a little bit of a break. So yeah, it was great to finally read this. It was great to finally read all of the books that were a part of this video, honestly. I'm so excited to be able to leave those reviews on NetGalley and to have gotten some books that I'd been meaning to read off of my TBR, and now I can focus on even more books. So obviously, as I just said, I filmed an unhaul. I went through both my read books and my TBR, but I ended up getting rid of quite a few books from my TBR, which helps me reduce that number and helps me to be excited about the books that I do have left existing on my TBR. I'm pretty sure this video is going to go up before that one, so if you're interested in seeing that, consider subscribing. I go through literally every book on my bookshelf. It was a lot, but I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Oh, comment to let me know what your thoughts are if you've read any of the books that I talked about in this video, and also what your favorite Taylor Jenkins Reid book is. I feel like she's got quite a few of them at this point, so I'd be interested to hear what your favorites are. I've read all of her recent ones with the exception of Carrie Soto is Back, and then I've read most of the romance books as well. I think I'm only missing one at this point. I plan on making a video at some point about her and her evolution as a writer, so I'd love to hear what your favorites are. Anyways, that's gonna do it for this video. Bye!